Pastor Mike Todd is one of the most influential pastors in the world. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He's the lead pastor of a fast-growing and thriving church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Transformation Church. He's also relatively young, only in his mid-30s. And if you look at the reach of his sermons, the life change that's being seen through both his ministry and the ministry of Transformation, it's hard not to look at the impact Pastor Mike is making online and on social media. As of this recording, he's got more than 2 million followers on Instagram, more than 1 million on Facebook, more than 1 million on TikTok, and more than 2 million subscribers are tuning into Transformation's YouTube channel. Those are staggering numbers, and if you look at the past 5 years, you can see steady growth. This is data from Instagram from roughly 400,000 followers in 2019 to more than 2 million today. Now, it's a pretty common thing when you see numbers like this and reach and influence to be skeptical. Right? Like some people will chalk this all up to watering down the gospel, while others are going to be waiting for the other shoe to drop. Give it time, and you will see comments below this video from people claiming that Pastor Mike is a wolf in sheep's clothing or an apostate or something similar. Such is life when you have the public profile that he has. For my part, I wanted to go direct to the source, which is why on a recent episode of the Pro Church Tools Show, our podcast, we sat down with Ron Starling, who for more than 3 years held the title of Content Creator to the Lead Pastor at Transformation, which is a fun way of saying that it was Ron who was working one-on-one with Pastor Mike Todd, helping to direct strategy on social. And when you look at this graph, again, showing the growth of Pastor Mike's social accounts online, it was Ron who was behind the scenes recommending post ideas and giving Pastor Mike feedback and advice on what to try next. The full podcast is linked on the screen and in the description, but the conversation with Ron was so revealing to me that I needed to talk about it on the main channel here as well. So let's start here, because this is one of the most important takeaways I gleaned from talking with Ron. Despite Transformation's size, their budget, available gear, and expertise, they consistently opt not to use cameras when making content for social, but instead just use their phones.
He knew how to use a camera, an actual camera, even though we opted not to use cameras as much as possible, unless we're making something high quality, because it's weird when you're like hanging out with your wife and you're like, hold on, let me set up the 5D Mark IV really quick over there. Like, that's weird. So I kind of just was like, hey, look, man, these are the things that I think you should be trying. This is a trend. If you could just do this with your wife on a date night, or if you can do this with your family, or if you can fit this in, whatever. And one day it clicked. And he was like, Ron, I got it. And I was like, bro, you been had it. So that plus the content I would make for him from church, that plus the content I would make with him when we're on trips, it was a perfect storm. And that's what I think actually attributes to virality. It's momentum. It's not just one video, it's multiple. A lot of people are like, I just made this one video, and they kind of just like, they're a one-hit wonder. When in all reality, you want to have 5 or 6 videos always going. You want to have multiple videos in your week that adds to the pot. It's a crock pot, and you want to cook this thing. We're cooking.
So 3 huge takeaways from that 1-minute clip from Ron that I don't want you to miss. The first one, Pastor Mike was choosing to create content with his phone rather than the cameras the church already owned and that Mike already knew how to use. Why? Well, because using that gear in the context that they are discussing would not have been genuine. People would have been able to see right through it. To that end, here's a rule for making videos that is timeless. What you're shooting and how you're shooting need to tell the same story. Okay, what you're shooting and how you're shooting need to tell the same story. So what does that look like in practice? Well, if Pastor Mike is making content showing off his family and his fitness journey, his day-to-day life as a human being, it makes sense for that to be shot through the lens of him, holding up his phone in selfie mode, right? Because it's supposed to be in the moment and off the cuff. Inversely, the video that you're watching right now is the synthesis of a ton of information. It includes overlays and B-roll, emphasizing visually what I'm saying. A video like this should not be in the moment. It should not be off the cuff because it would not serve its purpose that way. So it's about the right tool for the job. That's takeaway number 1. The second big takeaway, what does Ron say about virality and growth? It's not just one post, it's multiple. You get this stacking effect where one post's momentum bleeds into the next, which bleeds into the next, and they begin to compound. And this is why the foundation of every single church social media strategy needs to be hashtag or no hashtag. No weeks off. If you don't have that, you forfeit even the potential of the magic that Ron is describing. And let me show this to you visually, okay? What you're looking at right now is my real-time notifications on Instagram. You see that first notification of a few new likes on a reel? That reel is from 12 weeks ago, and it's the first notification. The next two are from a post today. It's got some new comments and likes. After that, more likes and views from a reel that's 5 weeks old. Then engagement from a carousel from 2 weeks ago, and engagement on a reel that's a week old. It's still getting new likes. And speaking of likes, if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button. Really does make a difference. And if you're new around here, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. But getting back to the point at hand, this is what is truly amazing about discovery algorithms on social media right now. It used to be that you would get engagement on a post for about 48 hours, and then distribution would stop and the post would basically disappear forever. But today, I've got posts from months ago, literally last year, still reaching new people. And when you combine that with No Weeks Off, you start to have multiple posts doing that same thing, and they stack and they compound, and that's where the magic happens. And then one final takeaway from that clip with Ron, he talks about Pastor Mike posting about his family and date night. Did that come off as strange to anyone? You know, it's not entirely common for pastors to post about that kind of stuff, and Ron expands on this idea a bit more here.
There's different facets to who he is. There's different facets to who really everyone is, and a lot of people think that they're just one-dimensional, and they only make content in that one pillar, is what I call it. And it's like, wait, no, like there's many different facets to you. We need to explain to the world how God is impacting all of those things. So if you look at even his social media now, it's not just the church, it's fitness, it's family, it's fatherhood, and then also it's the church. And there's so many different things that you can create within that. So it kind of gave him freedom to make content within those lanes. And all I had to do was say, hey, if you do it like this, you'll never lose. And he was like, bet.
Fitness, family, fatherhood, plus the preaching clips, plus what's going on at church. If you asked me, what do you think of Brady? What do you think of Pastor Mike? I think of his commitment to his family and his commitment to his personal health. Those probably actually come before what he preaches about and what he's doing at Transformation, for me anyway. In part because a big chunk of what Mike posts about is dedicated to that, but also because of the pillars, to use Ron's word, of content that Pastor Mike has. It's the fitness and family stuff that interests me more. And getting really practical here, this is why not being one-dimensional online as a church or as a pastor or as a human in general is important if you care about reaching more people. Because if it's just preaching clips, let's say, well, if you don't resonate with Pastor Mike's preaching style or his theology, you're going to be out on him. But if he also has a pillar for fatherhood, for being a husband, for caring about his personal health, well, now he's hitting on more topics, and maybe his preaching style doesn't resonate with me, but I'm inspired to be a better dad myself because I'm seeing what he's committed to and working through. So now you're expanding the potential pool of people that you can reach because you're talking about more things. The key, and this is so important, each of the pillars has to be authentic to what you value, okay? You can't just pick it out of thin air because you know it's popular or what people want to hear. The key is finding the intersection between what the world cares about and also what you care about. Here's how Ron describes this in the context of jumping on trends and how him and Pastor Mike would make decisions on like, is this us or are we just jumping on a trend because it's popular?
So there's a couple things that we have in place. The first thing is this. It's represent. I wear it on my chest. I'd probably low-key get a tattoo, but that's too much of a commitment. But represent. It's representing God to the lost and found, right? For transformation in Christ. If I can fit it within that, I'm winning. Yo, if I'm taking culture, representing it and saying, hey, look, I know that this was misrepresented. I want to show you what God is actually doing within this, and I'm the conduit for it. It'll always work. Right? So that's one filter. Does it fit within our mission?
How many times on this channel and on the podcast have we talked about the imperative of making decisions in your church based on your stated values? Should we do this trend or not? Answering that question should not come down to the pastor pulling rank or a power struggle between two staff members with their own personal preferences. It should always be about being faithful to the mission. And you can see it in Ron's reply here. Mike and the senior leadership team of Transformation have done such a good job at casting vision with, and they get bonus points for this, memorable language. Represent, not represent, but representing God to the world. The senior leaders of the church have done such a good job at casting that vision that Ron's first instinct when evaluating something as small as a single social media post is to ask himself, does this align with the values of our church? What are those values? He's got them memorized. That's how you get everyone pulling in the same direction. That's how you minimize conflict between people's personal preferences, because it's not about that. It's about the mission that we're all meant to be bought into. And this doesn't just apply to values, aka the what, but also your church's DNA, aka the how. What I mean by this is Ron straight up acknowledges that you don't want to pretend to be someone you're not. I mean, just because Todd presents himself one way that's true to him doesn't mean you should do it that way also, because that might be disingenuous.
Let's maximize what your gift already is. Let's maximize who you already are and pull something out of you that you just didn't know that you could do yet, rather than forcing you to do something that you really don't care for. So even for the context of churches with pastors who are more introverted and don't care about things like that, it's actually still possible to do. Hey, you don't have to be loud and proud on Instagram. You can be quiet and sharp. You can be intentional and start small.
Now, there's one final clip that I want to share with you from Ron, and it's crucial to listen extra close to this one because there are two unmissable pearls of wisdom within.
I remember the first time I said something crazy and he trusted me. And I was like, oh, that's kind of wild. Like you really gonna listen to me? He was like, dude, yeah, like this is your job. I was like, that's kind of valid. He's like, I hired you for this. I was like, dude, all right, cool. We're in a meeting. We're planning for his book, Crazy Faith. And we're talking through a couple different things. So it was Crazy Faith book, marketing meeting, plus like what we're going to do for this year when it comes to social media. I had two big ideas. The first one was, we need a slogan for Crazy Faith. Like, it's only crazy till it happens. Everyone already knows that. So we're sitting at the table and I'm like prayed up. I'm like, God, like I pray that this idea works. And we're like, we need a second saying. And I go, yeah, like you got to see it before you see it. And he was like, I like that. I was like, I like it too. Like what you want to do? And he goes, no. Like that's it. You got to see it before you see it. That's what faith is. So, and like he took it and ran with it. When I hear him say that, it's so edifying because he took my idea, I submitted it to him, and he's running with it, and it worked. He trusted me and was like, yo, like, that's great. And in that same meeting, I said this, yo, social media is changing. This is right as Reels were introduced to Instagram, and you're getting rewarded basically for doing Reels first. I was like, yo, if we make every video a Reel, we will not lose. Like, no more recaps over a minute. They've got to be 60 seconds or less because that is what the platform is asking of us. If we do that and we go hard, we won't lose. I remember saying that, and we went from maybe 900K to 1.5 million in just a couple of months.
Did you pick up on the two big takeaways there? Yeah, maybe you got different ones from me, but this is what stands out when I watch that clip. Number one, the power of trusting a younger leader and believing in them even when the stakes are high, and how that can forever shape that person's trajectory in life. And really, this cannot be overstated. When you have an online following of millions and you're a pastor, the stakes are extremely high. One misstep, one error, and your reputation can be dissolved in an instant. So that's one very real thing that you need to balance if you're Pastor Mike Todd. But to be a good leader, you also need to trust the people around you. And you can hear it in Ron's voice, how much it meant to him when Mike believed in his idea and ran with it. You know, for my part, when I was 21, my pastor put a camera in my hand at our new church plant and said, go and make the vision video we're going to show at Vision Sunday. And that singular moment of trust, when he gave me the permission to do that, forever affected the trajectory of my own life. This video that you're watching, this channel, my professional career, and the 20 plus full-time employees that my company has on staff, none of that exists without that moment, that pastor empowering me. And then the second big takeaway I got from that clip was how big of an emphasis Ron put on taking advantage of social media changes as soon as they happen. Reels of the future? All right, we're gonna go all in on them right now. And to be clear, when that was happening, as Ron described it, Transformation and Mike's social accounts already had hundreds of thousands of followers, millions combined. They did not need to jump on any new trends. They could have just kept doing what they were already doing and been fine with the audience that they had built to that point. And yet, despite that, they were still hungry to reach more people with the gospel, affect life change in more people. And I think it's a great takeaway for all of us because what I see is a lot of bigger, more affluent churches skating by on their existing influence. They're actually not good models for your church because they're really not following the best practices of social themselves. They're just already a big church with an affluent pastor. And if you have that level of celebrity, you don't need to be savvy online. You can just fall back on that public profile. But imagine, what if you had that affluence already and combined it with best practices? That's what transformation has done and continues to do, and is to their credit, because it would be very easy to take their foot off the gas, but they have not. There's so much more to my interview with Ron. We talk about how to decide what goes on a pastor's account versus what goes on a church account when you're making content. We chat about how he manages posting 5 times per day on Instagram. Yeah, it's a lot. And the big question we ask him straight up: why is he no longer at Transformation Church? He's incredibly candid. The interview is linked on the screen, so go check it out on our podcast YouTube channel. If you prefer listening, you'll find the Pro Church Tools Show on your podcast app of choice. And thanks as always for your time, attention, and trust. We'll talk soon.